Welcome to The Explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we're tearing down a massive misconception about the future of artificial intelligence. We almost always assume that the path to true superintelligence is bottlenecked by hardware, right? We think it's all about compute, server racks, or the sheer massive size of the models. But what if I told you the real ceiling isn't made of silicon at all? It's actually made of human culture. A really fascinating look inside Y Combinator's own internal AI playbook reveals a pretty radical truth. Technical limits are absolutely not what's stopping organizations from achieving superintelligence. Your company culture is. It's the internal social-cultural blockers that are actually holding back the true potential of AI. Seriously, it's not about how fast the AI can think, it's about how much your organization will actually allow it to see and do.
Section 1. The social-cultural blocker.
To really understand this, we need to look at how legacy mindsets prevent organizations from fully utilizing agentic AI. And the massive roadblock here is a concept called Safetyism. Safetyism is basically the practice of hiding prompt context and restricting AI capabilities from users, usually under the guise of protecting them from complexity. It's this instinct software developers have to lock down the AI, keeping the actual instructions, the prompts, completely hidden away. So instead of trusting users to iterate and explore, organizations build these narrow, rigid boxes around the AI just because open access feels kind of unsafe. But this fear-based approach, it actively harms an organization's ability to innovate.
It really comes down to a choice between two completely distinct futures. On one hand, you have this 1984-style centralized control. This is where AI is heavily restricted, locked down by corporate policies, and you have absolutely zero access to the underlying prompts. It's literally like going back to the 1960s mainframe era, where this tiny priesthood controlled all the computers. But on the other hand, we have the Apple I era of AI. This is that homebrew, garage builder mentality. It's open, it's experimental, and it is heavily user-controlled. Look, if we want superintelligence, we have to lean hard into the Apple I era and entirely abandon that centralized mainframe mindset.
Section 2. The Horseless Carriage Fallacy.
That restrictive mindset manifests today as what's known as the horseless carriage fallacy. This happens when companies try to slap on AI features by slotting a tiny bit of AI inside a massive shell of rigid deterministic code, meaning code that stubbornly only follows pre-written, completely inflexible rules. Think about it like an email autowriter where you just click a button, it spits out some text. But you can't actually change the instructions it used to write it. It's treating a totally revolutionary engine like a horse pulling a wooden carriage. Instead of making AI the foundational layer, developers are just wrapping it up in outdated software paradigms.
And here's the kicker. Hiding prompt context to supposedly protect users actually strips them of their superpowers. The true potential of AI is to shift the control of software away from the developer and put it directly into the hands of the everyday user. When a non-technical finance team can literally write their own workflows in plain English, rather than begging software engineers to code loops in Ruby, you unlock incredible speed and scale. Keeping that context locked away prevents this shift entirely.
In fact, one of the leading partners at Y Combinator put it incredibly bluntly when discussing this exact trend. Quote, "Safetyism, I hate it." You can really feel the passion there, because when you use an open, unrestricted AI agent locally, you feel like you have absolute superpowers. You can do anything, but then you go to work, you're forced to use these lockdown, restricted AI features, and suddenly you're back in the dark ages. Make no mistake, safetyism is the absolute enemy of empowerment.
Section 3. The Context Engineering Refinery. So what actually happens when an organization completely rejects safetyism? You get a high-trust organization that processes knowledge through what they internally call a dream cycle. Imagine reframing how we look at meeting recordings. Even just 2 years ago, recording every single meeting felt, well, kind of creepy, right? Like a surveillance tool. But today, it's the pure fuel for a context engineering refinery. Here's how it works. Step 1, record all internal meetings and artifacts. Step 2, an AI agent reads these transcripts every single night. Step 3, the agent automatically writes and improves what are called skills, or prompts, based on what it just learned. And finally, Step 4, that refined skill is transformed into a globally available asset for the entire company.
Let's look at a real-world example of this from Y Combinator. YC partners spend a ton of really expensive time teaching founders how to write a clear 2-sentence pitch for their company. It's hard. It requires deep context and years of experience. Well, by recording office hours where partners coached founders on these pitches, the AI agent read the transcripts, learned the deep context of what makes a good pitch, and continuously refined its own internal prompt. And the crazy result?
The AI now actually writes better two-sentence pitches than the human partners do. No way, right? But it's true.
The benefits of running this dream cycle are just massive. It extracts all that expensive, hard-won expertise from your key players. It creates these nightly, autonomous, self-improving loops where the system literally just gets smarter while everyone is sleeping. And it drastically reduces ramp-up time for new employees. They don't have to bother busy star players with a million questions. They just learn from the agent that has already completely absorbed the star player's knowledge. This is exactly how you compose individual talents into a unified, super-intelligent organization.
Section 4. The 2028 Time Warp.
Now, let's be real. To run this level of agentic infrastructure, processing transcripts daily, allowing open access to massive amounts of data, you have to be willing to spend heavily on tokens. We're talking something like $100,000 a year just on API tokens alone. So let's debate this for a second. For a startup, dropping $100,000 solely on internal AI tools sounds incredibly reckless, doesn't it? Is this absolute madness, or is it a stroke of genius?
Well, it really comes down to this core strategic question. Will you leapfrog the Fortune 500? Because right now, those massive Fortune 500 incumbents are totally trapped. They're trapped in legacy tech, and more importantly, they are trapped in that 1984-style centralized control mindset we talked about earlier. They will not spend the money to open this up because they are terrified of security and paralyzed by safetyism.
Spending $100,000 on AI tokens today essentially buys your company a 2028 time warp. Think about it. In a few years, by 2028, this kind of compute will cost a fraction of the price. And sure, everyone will do it. But if you spend the big money right now, you get to live in the future today. You get to operate with a superintelligence that your entrenched competitors won't even touch for years. It's exactly like those companies in the 1990s who spent a fortune buying those flaky, expensive desktop computers for their employees while their competitors stubbornly stuck to paper.
Section 5. The Multiplayer Superpower.
So right now, in 2024, we are largely stuck in the single-player era. We use AI as a local copilot on a single machine with completely isolated context. And hey, it's great for the individual, but it doesn't scale the organization one bit. The big leap we absolutely must make is transitioning to the multiplayer superpower. This requires moving to open agents that operate on a shared organizational database, finally unlocking true collective intelligence.
To get that multiplayer magic, you need a single source of truth. At Y Combinator, this means building a massive Postgres database that contains literally everything. The company's table, the founder's table, internal CRM notes, financial transactions, the whole shebang. Everything is denormalized, which is really just a fancy way of saying it's completely flattened out into a format specifically optimized so an AI agent can read all of it at once. When all your context is in one place, an agent can instantly answer any arbitrary business question across the entire organization.
When every artifact, transcript, and data point becomes a communal asset that's freely accessible by these agents, you achieve something truly remarkable. As the YC team describes it, it's like a shared organizational brain, the closest thing to us being able to connect our brains. And you know what? That transparency actually breeds a high-trust, egalitarian culture where employees literally learn just by watching how others creatively prompt the shared agents.
So we arrive at the final, absolute most important question you have to ask yourself and your leadership team. Will you give your company a shared brain or let safetyism lock you in the past? The technology is already here. It's waiting. The only thing actually stopping your organization from acting with superintelligence is the courage to unlock your context and fully trust your team. Think about that as you look at your own tools today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.